Programming on Royameadow is powered by AMD. The Radeon VII delivers incomparable performance for the 2010X decade, the most powerful graphics card in their library. Second-hand prices begin at $300 US.
We're not that funny. Like, don't be in that way. That's gonna be my intro. What the hell? We're matching. Oh. It's really beautiful here.
Local broadcasts of Royameadow commentaries is made possible by our members, in partnership with Nina's Pampered Paws, Canine Care Services by Nina Huerta, offering affordable coverage to the Canton area and all of eastern Massachusetts.
Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the final part of regular F-Zero. So we are now going into the King League as Fire Scorpion, which for many of you, if you've played as the Wild Goose, you already know what to anticipate. So at this point, it's nighttime in Mute City. You know, I find it interesting. Mute City is the only area in F-Zero that has a different palette every single time that you go to it, and this would not be dived into again until we reach BSF-Zero Grand Prix 2. Or more importantly, the original BSF-Zero Grand Prix, because 4 of the courses are from there. So you have Sandstorm 1 and 2. Sandstorm 2 takes place either during sunset, twilight, or late evening, probably like going in the prime time, so like 7 to 8, probably 7:30 p.m. all we know. And then there's Mute City. Mute City starts in the daytime, you then go to the sunset, now we're in prime time, and then in BSF-Zero Grand Prix 2 we get Mute City 4, which takes place during the after dark hours. And honestly, I love Mute City 4. Greatest palette for this game. Or more importantly, for that particular venue. For this particular venue. I kind of have a bit of a few mixed words to say about the course, especially if you're a speedrunner. But I think we'll save that for when we get to BSF-Zero Grand Prix 2. Again, I got a... You know, it's hard for me to say I've got an anus load to say without it probably coming out sounding dirty. But no, you understand what I mean. There's a massive lot I have to say about that particular title that I'll save it for that time. It'll be a very epic moment in F-Zero's history because of just how long we've been waiting for the SoundLink ROM to get archived, and I apologize for having to constantly repeat myself on that, because again, there are still many SoundLink and BSX ROMs that do not have proper archival online yet, and the only way to get them is if you know a Super Famicom BSX Satellaview preservationist in the Japan area. That is a mouthful to say, but that's sadly the reality, fact of the matter. Right now, there is just no feasible way to get some of these games, and I know that there are other titles in Satellaview that not even any of us know yet. That unless if there's footage out there on like Nyko Video or YouTube, you're not finding these anytime soon. You know, I would say be grateful that we at least have footage of Forest 1 to 3 and Metal Fort 1 and 2. Those we can talk about until the cows come home. But I honestly don't know how long it'll take for some of these other hidden gems to get attention. Unless if Nintendo themselves deliver, unless if the people who make up Nintendo themselves deliver on bringing us these titles in some capacity or another. be it a modified ROM or a compilation of sorts with emulation, I just don't know. I genuinely cannot tell you what to expect. But for the time being, I'd say I feel that we're okay enough that we can be patient a little more. Either that or just wait for F-Zero Final. Actually, speaking of F-Zero Final, if memory serves correctly, the same development team that works on F-Zero Final also works on a mod called F-Zero Versus. Now, what F-Zero Versus is, this is a very, very innovative piece of material. Oh, really? Am I gonna have to look up this? I don't want to have to do more than I have to, because I know that Port Town 2 is about to come on screen. Oh yeah, it is called F-Zero Versus. It's VS, not the word versus. That's what's throwing me for a loop. So, oh right, and I don't think it has a public release yet, does it? Okay, no, it doesn't have an official release yet. Okay, so to be more precise on what F-Zero Versus is, this is a ROM hack that allows you to play multiplayer in F-Zero, up to 4 players. I think up to 4 players. I'd be surprised if it allows you to do up to 20. That'd be even more astounding. It has online functionality, so you can run this in bsnes or bsnes-hd or any relevant emulator with NetPlay. If you're playing on actual hardware, it is one of the most complex setups of all time. It's very similar to how Virtua Racing's 4-player setup actually works. So what you'd have to do, you'd have to have one Super Famicom unit or one Super NES unit for every instance of F-Zero Versus you intend to play. If memory serves correctly, they must all be the same NTSC-U, PAL, or NTSC-J ROM. You have to have multiple monitors or multiple television sets. That's the only feasible way right now to deliver Versus mode without using split screen. Which actually makes me wonder about if F-Zero can even use split screen in the regard that I'm thinking. Because, like, if the game could be modded to probably use, like, the Super FX2 chip, if it's modded to use Super FX2, could it do proper split screen, like 4-player split screen with split screen mode 7? Or would that be too taxing on native hardware that it would probably have to be a BSNES exclusive? Because for those who are unaware, BSNES offers overclocking. You can overclock the CPU, you can overclock some extra chips. Super FX can be overclocked. There are just so many things that allow for you to up the performance, and it just feels right. Honestly, though, the original F-Zero is interestingly enough optimized enough that you don't need to overclock the CPU on this unless you want, like, faster loading times. But even at that doesn't really make much of a difference because it's already fast enough for F-Zero. Loading times would only probably drop a speed run by maybe like a few frames, a few centiseconds worth off the top Fire Stingray run. And that's enough for me to say that, you know, an OC is not necessary. Kind of like how many overclocking enthusiasts are always, will the term adamant make sense here? About wanting to have the fastest possible multi-core frequency. Honestly, you know, I'm running my Ryzen 5950X at stock on the NHD 15, and I don't really feel a need to overclock the CPU to like 4.6 or 4.8 gigahertz. One, because I don't know if the NHD 15 can handle it, and number two, it works good enough that it beats my Intel 8400 by significant margins. And compared to what the Hewlett-Packard, the Hewlett-Packard Pavilion 590 P0057C offered, this system here runs at about, with the 5950X and Radeon 7 in action, plus the RAM overclocked to 3200 megahertz from its native 2400, I'm seeing a performance uplift of at least 7 to 10 times what the Pavilion offered, that I don't need higher performance. Which makes me wonder about some of these, re-released third-party variants of fourth-generation consoles, such as the Mega Drive, the Super Famicom. I don't know if the AMD Jagger would come into play here, and also a few others that have been on the agenda to look at for one reason or another. You know, when you think about it, whenever these re-release models come out, it's interesting that they're not using overclocked parts, or at least parts that are running faster than what the original consoles ran at. Because honestly, when the Mega Drive 2 came out in like 1993, 1994... Oh, there's another death. In 1993 and 94, when the Mega Drive 2 came out, I feel that the one thing that holds it back is its 7.67 megahertz frequency in the Motorola 68000. If that was overclocked to be the Motorola 68000's native frequency of 10 megahertz, I feel that it would have been a significantly better buy, and probably would have also matured better in price on the second-hand market. Because, I mean, the Mega Drive 2 ended up going at one point for the same price as a GameCube, $99 US. That is a bargain. That would have been a bargain at certain times, but if it came with a higher clocked CPU, I could easily see that still going for about $129 in its later years, in the later years of its lifespan before discontinued support in 2001. But I do believe that more people would have encouraged delivering CPU frequency tuning in their emulators. One of the reasons why I keep snitching and moaning about Gen's re-recording at times is because it doesn't have overclocking support, and I don't want to have to use Genesis plus GX or Regen for certain games. That's just how I've always felt, and honestly, I hope at some point we'll get to the point where overclocking does become the norm for some of the more, for some of the oldest emulators out there. But only time will tell, who knows? Especially on the front of ThxCom. But here we are, final course of F-Zero, at least original F-Zero, Firefield. I have a love-hate relationship with this course. Love the music, hate the course. This course is a snitch. It is a pain in the Dick Cheney. It will kick your anus more times than I can count. It does so much wrong that it is fitting as a final course. And that is good, that's fine by me. That's fine by me. But when you're recording a game, when you are recording this game for any channel, there's a reason why I have to use the sands of time. There are just so many areas where a run can go wrong. Or even a live play. I guarantee you, there have probably been more deaths on Firefield than there has been in any part of the Ace and Joker leagues in BSF-Zero Grand Prix 2. Heck, I would even go as far to say that there are probably more deaths and fails in Firefield than all of F-Zero X, GX, and AX combined. But I'm sure that there are courses in those that are equally as bad or worse. And I'll be truthful, I have never played GX, AX, or any of the Game Boy Advance titles. So whenever I do get to those games, there's going to be a journey. There's going to be a journey and a half with you understanding, or at least witnessing me enjoying these for the first time. It'll feel so dynamically different than anything I'm used to, because again, all that I've ever been used to is what you're seeing here. 1990s F-Zero is, honestly, in my view, it's peak F-Zero. Nothing beats this formula. The Formula Zero race formula. That's a weird way of putting it. The Formula Zero race formula, but that's exactly what it is. There's nothing to it. There's really nothing to it. The graphical direction is superb for its time. The speed is right. The curves are right. Although some curves are a little too sharp for comfort, it's still satisfactory in the end. And that's why I still feel that many people in reviews, they give this game a B. They still give this game a solid B or B+, while ranking certain things as an A, and I got hit by that mind because I was actually scratching my head. There was many a time where I had to scratch my head during this because of heat exposure. In fact, speaking of heat exposure, you might remember in the Star Cruiser commentary that here at Home Base 7, here in Lynn, Massachusetts, we hit 90. We hit 90 degrees during part 6 of the commentary. And in here, this year, we peaked at 94 in the house. I want to say it's hot. It felt hotter than Firefield does. Yeah, it was hotter than what Firefield looks like. No form of air cooling could handle these thermals. That is how bad it was. We had multiple days. We have gone at least 4 days where it's been 90 this year alone in the house. That is dangerous. That is a health hazard. And many houses in Lynn suffer that because they're all over 100 years old. Many of the houses that are over a century old here, including my own. My one was built in 1908 and launched in 1910, for the market anyway. I really hope that anybody who had this house before didn't have to worry about these kind of thermals. Because I remember when I first came here, the roof didn't have any damage. We didn't suffer from a sinkhole that had to be filled in 2018. And ultimately what happened was that the highest temperature I could ever recall reaching in the house was 81 to 85. We didn't ever peak roughly up to 13 degrees higher than that range. That really shows you how much this house has aged, and if other people who have grown up with me in Lynn throughout the past 14 years at the time of the release of this program, September 4 of 2021, I'm recording this on August 20, they can tell you the same thing too. They didn't expect that something like this would be a problem deep into their adult years. Some of them are fresh out of college, starting a new career. Some of them got kids. Some of them are starting a new business as I speak. And for Lynn to have this kind of a problem now, it is critical. It is critical, and whoever ends up the next mayor for 2022 to 25, I can only imagine how they will have to handle this. Wow, I can really hear the bass in my ears. See, that's the good thing about these Sony sports earphones that I've been using since 2019. You can get so much mileage out of it that when you take off the earphones, it's just, your ears just, they don't pop out, but man, I feel like I'm talking into an HD microphone right now. And I'm only using the Sony IC recorder, which has a completely different audio quality on its base internal microphone. But yeah, but back to the subject on Mayor of Lynn, actually. I wanted to run, but right now they're actually, like on my end, especially after the effects of SARS coronavirus 2 and just other situations that are going on right now, I ultimately don't know how I will handle going forward here in Lynn, because, you know, some relatives of mine want to leave this town. I don't know what will happen if they and I have to go our separate ways, because wherever home base 9 is, that will be my main base of operations for the foreseeable future. So I don't know if I don't think I'll stay in Lynn if everybody else goes. If I do move, it will have to still be in the greater Boston area, which includes the North Shore, because, you know, virtually all of my friends and colleagues are here. Virtually every co-head administrator, with the exclusion of Shadia, Amber, and Lena right now, they're all everyone else is up here full time. So, very likely, because honestly, I'm just tempted to buy, like, a warehouse that also doubles up as a loft in Boston. That's honestly how I feel. If money weren't an obstacle, get myself a cheap and affordable, not by cheap, I mean respectably affordable, not cheap in the regards that it's run down and whatnot. No, I don't want a run down building. I would want a warehouse that has enough real estate that I can have like a black box theater and rotoscoping rooms, as well as, you know, have an upper floor with a view of the skyline of Boston. While, you know, being able to set up that as a residence, I'd have more than enough space to put everything without it looking all crammed here. I mean, honestly, my room right now looks like Morley Safer's office at CBS. And that's not an insult. That's not a jab at Morley Safer. Morley Safer, when he was around, when he was alive, he honestly had one of the most brilliant and intelligent looking rooms of his time. I know the commentary, I know that the game is already over at this point. I just want to make sure that I get all this out in the open. But quite frankly, I enjoyed just having a massive amount. I enjoyed how much he had. Like, he had basically his entire office was an archive. You see all these newspapers and books just casually hanging out. And I'm sure that it was a lot of articles that he and his colleagues and just many good friends of his were just so happen to have. That's the same thing with me. I've got a small space in this room for literally everything. You know, TVs on one end, hardware on another, video games in another region, legacy stuff from Generation 1 on a dresser, books on like a 5-shelf bookshelf, and miscellaneous stuff in a buttload of boxes. All that's all fine and dandy. All that is very fine and dandy. And honestly, you know, one of these days, I do feel that I do need to give a tour of my room. I'll do that eventually. But I feel that at this point, this is good enough. This is good enough for me. I'm satisfied. And I'm sanguine that all of you are satisfied as well. As I said, I'm a little rusty. But, you know, who isn't? Who isn't? Rusty. Who is not rusty when they've been away for 21 months? When you've been away for 21 months, of course, some things won't be perfect when you start them, but gradually over time they'll get better, and that's honestly where I see things going with me. So, I think that's probably the best way to put this commentary to an end. I will come back to F-Zero once BSF-Zero Grand Prix 2 is available. If I do BSF-Zero Grand Prix in any capacity, that'll probably come in the form of Royameadow Live exclusives on Twitch. And for those curious, no, RYMDOT does not mean on Twitch. OT means online transmission. Just like how the eventual Royameadow Radio, whenever we launch that, that's RYMDRT. RT means radio transmission. So yeah, going back, I do believe that this is a good start. Yes, I am a little all over the place. That's to be expected. That's to be expected from a return to commentary after almost 2 years. But I do believe that the next thing that we'll probably do is something I've had in the back burner for a long time. Royameadow Modern Legacy will be the next major series of works to take on. And I believe that the best way to do that would actually be to talk over some of the first games that I did for this channel, including the first Rockman, which I've already done a revisit of, I think back in, 2013 or 14, and Sonic the Hedgehog MD. I recently went through a complete binge of, 8-bit Sonic as well, so I'm at least good until we reach 1996, because I still need to do Flicky's Island. I'll do Director's Cut and both and the Saturn version, but more on that later. And then I have other things on the back burner, such as Lakers versus Celtics in the NBA Finals. I got Alex Kidd. Mario revisits, Bare Knuckle 1, 2, and 3. About time I finally got to those, right? And just so much more in between. But as I said, this commentary has gone on for a little longer than anticipated. I'm at least happy that I can at least show off what this system can do. And I hope that those of you who are viewing this from the Patreon newsletter are enjoying what you're seeing here. If you like the formula that I deliver and you want to have your material be promoted, subscribe to become a 7-hand member, or even a dual 7-hand member if you want least time programming to show up during the station breaks, or if you want them to be Royameadow exclusive when they debut. Do that, and if you subscribe, and then we'll get into talks from there. But other than that, I can easily say that we're all set. So until we meet again, I am freelance entertainer Roya Rockwood. Enjoy your day, afternoon, evening, prime time, late night, after dark, whenever the duck you happen to be watching this program. It feels so good to say that, and I am happy to be back. Until then, though, everybody, thank you. She's got spunk.
I'm like looking for your opinion.
She's got talent.
I now see everything was once nothing.
She's got personality.
This is not at all how you're supposed to do this.
Don't do it! I'm too short for any of these mirrors.
The local actions and antics of New York come in the form of Amber Pico, ChaoticBun. Thursday night at 8. All this and more on Royameadow Generation 4.